05:17 hours, Persian Gulf, 47 nautical miles southeast of the Strait of Hormuz. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group maintains standard patrol formation under a cloudless sky. The sea stayed calm at Force 2. Then the ANSPY-1D radar screens erupted, with contacts 60 inbound airborne signatures, bearing 042 degrees, range 38 nautical miles, speed 110 knots. The Combat Information Center aboard the Lincoln descended into controlled chaos. Tactical Action Officer Commander James Riordan identified the threat within 11 seconds, Iranian origin unmanned aerial vehicles. Launching in coordinated waves from mobile platforms along the Bushehr coastline, the swarm comprised a lethal mixture: Shahed 136 loitering munitions, Mohajer 6 reconnaissance drones providing targeting data, and Ababil T kamikaze variants armed with 40-kilogram warheads. This was not a probing operation. This was an orchestrated decapitation strike against the United States Navy's most visible power projection asset in the region. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps had committed to a threshold they had threatened for 3 years. The tactical problem was immediate: 60 autonomous weapon systems, each capable of mission-kill damage against a carrier, now 35 nautical miles out and closing at 2 miles per minute. Admiral Christopher Volin, Strike Group Commander, issued rules of engagement authorization at 05:18 hours. Weapons free. All air and surface assets cleared hot. The Lincoln Strike Group had trained for this exact scenario through 14 iterations of integrated air and missile defense exercises. Fury would now collide with Iranian hardware at supersonic velocities. The Carrier Strike Group's layered defense architecture activated in sequence, a choreographed escalation of violence designed to attrit the swarm before a single drone penetrated the inner defensive ring. Range to threat, 33 nautical miles. Time to weapons engagement zone, 16 minutes. At 052Ws 4 FA-8E Super Hornets from VFA-25, already airborne on combat air patrol 60 miles northeast of the Lincoln, received vector coordinates and went weapons hot. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kaufman led the flight into an intercept geometry that placed her strike package between the incoming swarm and the carrier group. At 28 nautical miles, she achieved lock. 2 AIM-120D AMRAAM missiles screamed off the rails at Mach 4, their active radar seekers acquiring the densest concentration of UAV signatures. Impact in 19 seconds. The lead Shahed 136 disintegrated at 18,000 feet, its wreckage tumbling into the Gulf in flaming spirals. Second impact, 3 Ababil T drones obliterated in a single fireball as proximity fuses detonated simultaneously. The Super Hornets rippled off 8 more AMAMs in 40 seconds, each missile tracking independent targets. Kill count, 11 UAVs destroyed, 49 remained. Range, 24 nautical miles. At 05:23 hours, the guided missile cruiser USS Gettysburg, positioned 8,000 yards northeast of the Lincoln, engaged with its Mark 41 vertical launch system. Fire Control Officer Lieutenant Marcus Chen authorized salvo release. 12 RIM 162 Devolve Sea Sparrow missiles launched in staggered intervals, their rocket motors igniting in sequential thunder that rolled across the water. The ESSMs climbed to intercept altitude, each guiding toward mid-swarm targets identified by the Aegis combat system's threat assessment algorithms. Engagement range, 19 nautical miles. The missiles struck with methodical precision. Explosions bloomed across the sky in geometric patterns as warheads found their marks. 7 more UAVs tumbled from formation, their control surfaces shredded by fragmentation. The tactical display updated in real time. 42 inbound contacts. The swarm was adapting. Iranian operators remotely retasked surviving drones into dispersed attack vectors, splitting the formation into 3 separate axes designed to saturate defensive fire. The northern Prong 18 drones angled toward the destroyers. The central mass 16 UAVs maintained direct bearing on the Lincoln. The southern Element 8 Mohajer 6 platforms climbed to 22,000 feet, attempting to exploit gaps in the engagement envelope. At 05:26 hours, 2 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters from HSM-71, operating from the destroyer USS Michael Murphy, engaged the southern element with AGM-114 Hellfire missiles. The rotorcraft, hovering at 400 feet and 5 nautical miles southwest of the formation, achieved lock on the high-altitude reconnaissance drones providing targeting data to the kamikaze variants. 4 Hellfires launched in rapid succession, their laser guidance systems tracking the slower Mohajer 6 platforms. The missiles impacted within a 6-second window. 5 drones destroyed outright. too damaged and spiraling out of controlled flight. The decapitation of the reconnaissance layer blinded a critical node in the Iranian swarm's kill chain. The remaining UAVs defaulted to pre-programmed autonomous attack modes. Their threat reduced but far from neutralized. Range to carrier, 14 nautical miles. Time to enter defense zone, 7 minutes. At V528 hours, the destroyers USS Michael Murphy and USS Stockdale opened fire with their 5-inch Mark 45 naval guns, engaging the northern prong at 12 nautical miles. The guns fired in automated mode, the ANSQ-9B fire control radars feeding constant tracking updates. High explosive rounds detonated in proximity-fused airbursts, each explosion creating lethal fragmentation clouds. The destroyers fired 47 rounds in 90 seconds. 8 UAVs shattered mid-flight, their aluminum airframes no match for hypersonic steel fragments. The northern axis collapsed into chaos, the surviving 10 drones scattering as their formation integrity disintegrated. But the central mast still 16 strong pressed the attack toward the Lincoln, now 11 nautical miles distant and closing. The carrier began evasive maneuvers, a ponderous turn to port that brought her bow into the wind, preparing for emergency flight operations while minimizing profile to inbound threats. At 0531 hours, the sky erupted. The Lincoln's RIM 1 and 6 rolling airframe missile launchers engaged at point-blank range 8 nautical miles. 21 rams launched from dual mounts, their infrared seekers locking onto the heat signatures of the lead Shahed 136 drones. The missiles accelerated to Mach 2.5, covering the intercept distance in 14 seconds. Impact, then another. Then 5 simultaneous detonations that painted the dawn sky in orange and black, 11 UAVs obliterated. But 5 Shahed 136 variants penetrated the ram envelope, now 6 nautical miles out and descending to wave-top altitude 10 meters above the surface seeking to exploit sea clutter radar interference. The northern axis survivors, 10 drones strong, regrouped and vectored toward the Gettysburg, now isolated 12,000 yards from the Lincoln. At 5:33 hours, the Phalanx close-in weapon systems aboard the Lincoln and Gettysburg achieved autonomous lock. The 20mm Gatling guns rotated to bearing, their radar tracking systems calculating intercept solutions at 300 rounds per second. At 2 nautical miles, the Phalanx mounts opened fire. The sound was primordial, a mechanical roar that drowned all radio communication. Tracer rounds arced across the water in luminous streams, each burst lasting 3 seconds and delivering 900 rounds downrange. The lead Shahed disintegrated 1,200 meters from the Lincoln's starboard bow, its warhead detonating prematurely in a fireball that sent shrapnel sleeting across the water. Second kill at 800 meters, third at 600 meters. The Gettysburg's Phalanx shredded 4 drones in a 20-second engagement, the wreckage impacting the Gulf in scattered trails of burning debris. But one Ababeing T, flying nap of the Earth at 80 knots, evaded the Phalanx fire corridor and struck the Gettysburg's aft superstructure at 0534 hours. The explosion tore a 4-meter gash in the cruiser's aluminum deckhouse, the 40-kilogram warhead detonating against the SPY-1D radar array's aft mounting. 3 sailors died instantly. 14 sustained injuries from fragmentation and blast overpressure. Fire suppression systems activated within 8 seconds, foam blanketing the impact site as damage control teams sprinted toward the breach. The Gettysburg remained combat capable. Her Aegis system degraded but functional, her propulsion and weapon systems intact. It was the only successful strike of the engagement. At 0534 hours, 17 minutes after initial radar contact, the final Iranian UAV damaged Mohajir 6 attempting to limp back toward Bushehr was intercepted by an FA-18E Super Hornet 40 nautical miles northwest of the strike route. Lieutenant Commander Kaufman fired a single AIM-9X Sidewinder. The drone vaporized at 4,000 feet. Silence settled across the battle space. The Lincoln strike group reduced to Condition 2, maintaining heightened alert as helicopters transitioned to search and rescue operations. There were no American survivors to recover from the water-only wreckage. The Persian Gulf surface was littered with debris across a 30-square-mile area. Twisted aluminum frames, shredded composite materials, unexploded ordnance that Navy EOD teams would spend the next 11 hours rendering safe. The Gettysburg's casualties were medevaced to the Lincoln's medical facilities within 28 minutes of the strike. All 14 wounded would survive. The 3 killed in action were Petty Officer 2nd Class Michael Torres, 24, of San Antonio, Texas, Petty Officer 3rd Class Amanda Chen, 22, of Portland, Oregon, and Seaman Recruit David Kim, 19, of Fairfax, Virginia. Iranian losses, 60 UAVs destroyed at a replacement cost estimated at $47 million. 0 Iranian casualties. The swarm had been launched remotely from mobile platforms that dispersed immediately after release. The tactical lessons were immediate and unambiguous. The engagement validated the effectiveness of layered integrated air defense when confronted with mass drone swarms, a threat that had transitioned from theoretical to operational reality. The FAA-18 interceptors, engaging at extended range with AMRAAM missiles, destroyed 18% of the swarm before it reached the ship-based defensive envelope. The Aegis cruiser and destroyers, employing a combination of ESSM missiles and 5-inch gunfire, accounted for 43% of total kills. The RAM and Phalanx systems operating in the terminal phase destroyed 37% of threats that penetrated the outer layers. The 2% that succeeded one UAV achieved mission kill against a secondary target but failed to inflict crippling damage on the primary objective. The carrier remained fully operational. The strike group's combat power was undiminished. Iranian planners had committed 60 autonomous weapons in a coordinated attack and achieved a tactical exchange ratio that was strategically catastrophic for Tehran. Strategic ramifications cascaded across the region within hours. The government of Iran issued no formal statement for 11 hours following the engagement, a silence that spoke to internal crisis deliberations. When the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps finally released a communiqué, it claimed the operation as a defensive response to American provocations, but conspicuously avoided claims of tactical success. Regional analysts noted the absence of triumphalist rhetoric that typically accompanied Iranian military operations. The silence suggested that Tehran's leadership recognized the operation as a decisive failure. International shipping insurers, who had elevated risk premiums for Gulf transits by 40% in the 72 hours preceding the attack, reversed course within 24 hours. The demonstration of American defensive capabilities provided more reassurance than a dozen diplomatic statements. Crude oil futures, which had spiked to $127 per barrel on news of the engagement, settled back to $94 within 36 hours as markets absorbed the outcome. The engagement fundamentally reshaped calculus across the Gulf littoral states. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, both possessing drone-heavy arsenals, immediately requested technical briefings on American integrated air defense architectures. Qatar accelerated negotiations for Patriot missile battery acquisitions. Israel's defense establishment published analytical assessments within 48 hours, highlighting the implications for countering Hezbollah's reported inventory of 2,000-plus UAVs in southern Lebanon. The tactical reality was stark. Mass drone attacks, once considered an asymmetric trump card for regional actors lacking advanced air forces, had collided with a defensive system that destroyed 98.3% of inbound threats while sustaining minimal damage. The mythology of the drone swarm as an unstoppable weapon had been shattered across 17 minutes of combat in the Persian Gulf. The Lincoln Strike Group remained on station for 11 additional days, conducting visible freedom of navigation transits through the Strait of Hormuz at intervals designed to demonstrate undiminished operational capability. Iranian coastal radar sites tracked every movement but issued no further challenges. The Gettysburg received temporary repairs from the carrier's damage control teams before detaching for Bahrain, where shipyard facilities would conduct permanent restoration over a 6-week period. The fallen sailors were repatriated to the United States aboard a C-17 Globemaster on February 14th, their flag-draped transfer cases loaded with full military honors at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. The political reverberations in Washington were immediate. Congressional defense committees received classified briefings within 36 hours. Budget authorizations for next-generation counter-UAS systems were fast-tracked through appropriations subcommittees. This engagement did not close a chapter in Persian Gulf tensions. It wrote a new tactical manual. Iran demonstrated willingness to employ massed autonomous systems in direct attacks on American naval forces, crossing a threshold that had restrained regional actors for decades. The United States demonstrated that such attacks, while capable of inflicting casualties, could not achieve strategic objectives against properly equipped and trained forces. The calculus for future confrontations had been redefined by empirical data. 60 inbound threats, 59 destroyed, 3 American lives lost, 0 strategic objectives achieved by the attacker. The mathematics were unforgiving. The tactical reality was that drone swarms, for all their proliferation and media attention, remained vulnerable to integrated defenses that combined long-range interception, mid-range attrition, and terminal phase precision. The strait remains open not through negotiation, but through demonstrated capability. 17 minutes of combat proved what years of strategic posturing could not, that the balance of power in the Persian Gulf is written not in diplomatic communiques, but in kill ratios and wreckage fields scattered across international waters. The USS Abraham Lincoln continues her deployment. The drones do not return.